You've tried the deep breathing, you have tried the cold plunge, you've tried the app that's designed to help to calm you, but nothing seems to work to help you just relax your brain and truly de-stress. We're talking about how we can train our nervous system today. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Begin Within Health Show. I want to thank you so much for helping to keep this show in the top 5% of all podcasts. I know I've said it before, but I'm so grateful to you. And if you haven't done so already and you'd love to help others find the show, please subscribe, follow, rate, and review the show, or just drop a comment in your podcast player or over on YouTube. Just say hi, ask a question, give me a recommendation for a future episode or a guest. All of that will help others to find the show. And of course, give us an opportunity to connect more deeply. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for being here. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation that I have today with Cameron Allen. He's the founder, he's the CEO of a company called Neuro Progeny. And he is, I would say, a neuroscience expert. I absolutely loved the conversation that I had with him. What he has done is built the world's first standalone virtual reality feedback device that is designed to help you train your nervous system. Now, we're not just talking about getting a break from stress, getting a distraction from it, but actually beginning to understand how to get our brain into a deep, relaxed, restorative state and to be able to keep it there. That's what he has been doing, helping others to become masters of their internal universe, training their nervous system, not just managing it, not just getting distracted from stress temporarily, but actually able to exert some control, some influence, and to be able to maintain that state of calm, stress-free living. The conversation we are about to have is going to reframe the way you think about stress, reactivity, and why it feels so hard to hold on to that calm, relaxed state that we all cherish so much. And I think the thing that stuck with me after our conversation was Cameron's explanation about how stress affects our cells. It affects our overall health. So listen closely for that. He says it in a way that I have not quite heard so clearly explained before. I know you're going to enjoy it. So here is my interview with Cameron Allen from Neuro Progeny.
Some of the origin of really what inspired me was having a family member who was dealing with some head injuries and tried a bunch of traditional stuff. And the mainstream kind of medical model didn't work. And then, we found neurotherapy and it worked really, really well. And the lights came on from this family member and our family was able to reconnect. And then for myself, I went through the similar program and the lights came on for me where I was dealing with a whole bunch of learning disabilities and really school just wasn't my thing. And then after going through the program, the lights came on for me and all of a sudden things got easier. It felt like this internal expansion. Time slowed down. Everything just was coming at me at a speed that felt like it was completely manageable. Whereas before, I didn't even realize it. But life just felt like it was flooding over me and I was constantly just responding and reacting to what was coming at me. But that was my life. That was my baseline. So that program was ridiculously expensive and prohibitive for most people. And so when I transitioned from a path where I was heading towards aeronautical engineering over to psychology, I started exploring what's at the root of psychology. Not just like, what are these people's ideas, but why did Freud come up with the ideas that he did? Why did Jung come up with the ideas that he did? Why did Rogers come up with the ideas he did? And it became this pursuit of, and this curiosity of, why on earth are we a field that does not image or evaluate the piece that's actually causing some of the troubles and some of the issues for us? If you have a broken arm, you're going to get an x-ray. It would be absurd
Right.
not to, it'd be malpractice not to. But when it comes down to working with, the psychological aspect or working with the nervous system, there's no precedence for actually taking an image or actually taking an accurate assessment of the organ itself that's causing it or the system internally that's causing it. Instead, we come up with these clever tests that are wonderful and they serve a purpose, but they're not actually measuring the organ itself. I mean, when we look at things like attention deficit, ADD, ADHD, all these things, they come from multiple areas of the brain. And so to
Mhm.
receive a diagnosis based off of a symptom questionnaire, this can be accurate, but wouldn't you also want to see directly what areas of the brain are over or underactivated? So in going back to kind of those first principles for me, it was really about like, what's at the core of what's causing, dysregulation in anybody's life? What's keeping us caught in familiar thought patterns or self-sabotage or, self-limiting beliefs, or even just anxiety and rumination and overthinking and overprocessing or brain fog? Well, at the core of all of that is the nervous system. The nervous system that's a parasympathetic or sympathetic nervous system that acts like the gas and the brake pedal in our brain or in our entire system that either keys us up and motivates us for defense and for activation and hyper focus, or allows us to drop back and relax. Does a lot more than just that, but to oversimplify it, that's essentially what it is. But if there's not a good balance and if you're hitting both the gas and the brake pedal at the same time, doesn't work very well. If you're not
Okay.
hitting either, doesn't work very well. It's got to be synchronized. And so I've spent the last, 20 plus years trying to figure out a good, accessible way to deliver a exercise that can actually help regulate the nervous system. And that's what really allowed me to land on the idea of integrating heart rate variability, which a lot of us know what that is. It's basically measuring the changes in each one of our heart rate. And that's a really good indication of resilience in our nervous system. But we didn't have a very precise way of doing it or a good feedback way. And so I came up with the virtual reality component of it. And so we built the world's first standalone virtual reality biofeedback device. And
Mhm.
we can get into some of what that
Amazing.
is, but the core of why I'm here is really to just help people recognize that whatever you're living with on a daily basis and kind of what you might think is just your lot in life or just your normal baseline, there's more to it than that. And there is a lot of extra baggage and stress and just weight we all carry that it's hard to even know until it's gone.
That's right.
How on earth did I cope with all that?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I love that you use the gas brake metaphor because it makes me think that a lot of times in life we're gassing and braking, but we're not understanding maybe the mechanism. Like
Mhm.
there's a gas and a brake, but we don't know how to push the pedal. Like
Absolutely.
actually access it when
Mhm.
we need to or when we want to, right?
Oh,
So if I'm hearing you right, your work is to try to help us to understand how when am I on the gas or the brake
mhm.
and how do I alternate between them? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think one of the key pieces is that if we can actually train our nervous system by giving it clear, objective feedback in the moment in the virtual reality, it's we become aware of when intensity is rising in our system and when stress is arising in our system before it ever gets to that point where then we're reactive. We're reactive with our kids. I mean, I think for parents, everybody has the experience of, everything's cool. We're cruising along. We're hanging out with the kids. And then one thing happens and all of a sudden we react in a way that we weren't even planning on, but it just happened because we hit the edge of our capacity. For business leaders that I work with, so often it's this process of, a challenge comes up in business. They want to meet the challenge head on and they want to drive into that challenge and they want to fix it. And they're motivated to solve the problem, which is excellent. It's a wonderful adaptive strategy, except for the fact that when we're operating out of a response to a stressor, we're doing it to try and get away from the discomfort of the stress rather than being able to see globally what are all of the options and implications of that decision. And so we force into it and we're burning out our team because we're trying to fix something for ourselves, but we're not realizing what the impact is on everybody else around us. And so so really when we've got this thing coming up, most of the time the intensity rises and gets to a level where we're not even aware that it's there until it's too late. And then we're jamming the gas and the brake. And that feeling of the engine revving and us staying in control somehow means progress, somehow means that we're doing something right, that we're successful, when it's just the illusion of control and we're just stuck standing still. So I think this gives us the opportunity to see where we're at, to recognize and get past all of the internal self-talk, the rumination, the narratives, and to actually make accurate choices around
Nice.
what's happening in our lives.
Wow. Okay. Could we talk a little bit about what the experience is like
Yeah,
using the virtual reality system? But and then
absolutely.
I'd like to get into a little bit of the kind of the benefits behind it. Maybe
Yeah.
just you mentioned like globally, like oh, even to our individual health outside of that into maybe relationships and understanding those impacts. But could you just kind of walk us through what an experience would be like
Yeah,
with the
definitely.
system?
Absolutely. So imagine with me, if you will, sitting at the edge of a lake and you're looking over this beautiful lake, and there next to you sits a rock, and on the rock, there's a fire pit built. And so you get into the game, you sit down, and you reach down and you pick up a matchbook or a matchbox and you strike a match and you light your fire, and the fire starts to grow and the sun begins to set over the lake. And all this while, your armband that is measuring your heart rate variability is calibrating. And so once the sun sets, your heart rate is showing up on this graph in front of you on a tree. And as you are in a resilient state, the fire starts getting bigger and starts to crackle. And it's this lovely and just wonderful, relaxing scene. If you move into more of a sympathetic nervous system state compared to the parasympathetic, your fog will start rolling in over the water. And so what's really interesting is that for a lot of us, when we are in a heightened stress state, more of a sympathetic nervous system state, we have a lot of resilience. So our heart rate variability is measuring our resilience so we can recover from intensity that hits us a little bit more quickly. And so we're used to mobilizing into recovery when we're experiencing more stress, but very few people can actually stay in a place of a parasympathetic nervous system state, a relaxed state, and have a lot of resilience. It's a very fragile state.
Hmm.
Think about being in a resting state. You're there, you're 100% present. And then all of a sudden, the thought of having to pay your taxes comes up, or the thought of something somebody said comes up, or the thought of whatever comes up. And now all of a sudden, you are completely launched out of that relaxed state. And now your mind's just carrying on. You got a whole story that happened. And we oftentimes aren't even aware of that story. We just buy into it. Like we're sitting in a movie theater and I love the imagery of the early movie goers. that went to one of the first shows. I can't remember what it was called, but I believe it was a French show. And they projected that there was a fire on a building on the screen, and everybody sitting in the theater couldn't figure it out. They couldn't process it. They believed it was real, so they all jumped up and ran out of the theater and like trampled each other to get away from this thing. And so then, where we're at now with movies, it can be hyper realistic and we can sit there completely uninterested and unaffected. But that is something that we can choose to do with our mind. Our brain is just projecting and our mind is creating the storyline. And the more we are unconscious of that and we buy into the storyline, it runs away with us and causes more of our sympathetic nervous system to spike. And so in the experience in the game, that causes fog to roll in. And then when we're able to drop in and just have perspective and awareness, the fog rolls out, the fire roars. And every time that happens, and it happens hundreds of times per session in a 7 to 10 minute session, that actually is operant conditioning on a cellular level in our brain that actually trains our brain to stay in a more aware, open, and relaxed state, recognizing that there is safety and comfort in this place of just allowing things to pass by. And then you can observe what's happening in your mind. You can observe what's coming at you. You can observe what's going on with your kiddos and then respond rather than just being forced into these defenses that cause us to push people away in our lives and then spike shame, guilt, isolation, other uncomfortable thoughts, beliefs, emotions that we're experiencing.
Wow. Yeah. Huh. Um, you had me there. By the way, I don't know if you're like a narrator on the program. I feel like your voice. I was just like I was zoned in as you're describing the beach and the lake, and then all of a sudden you said taxes. Oh,
I'm out.
go, man! You watching my armband right now? No. Um, what? I'm curious. Truly curious.
Mhm.
What, as far as like hardware goes, or how, am I experience? Would I experience this with like a VR headset,
Yeah,
the Meta Quest or something? Like what
exactly.
do I need
Yeah.
in order to play?
So the way that we've worked it out, because, you know, being a neurotechnology company, most people will either offer a software or a hardware. And we just decided to go with the difficult path of combining those things. And so what we've done is we've worked with the MetaQuest 3 and we've worked with an off the shelf heart rate variability arm sensor that is really easy to get a hold of. It's been tested against all of the clinical grade armbands. And so you can even get it on Amazon if you wanted to. But if an individual chooses to do this and sign up and it's a good fit for them, then what we'll end up doing is we'll send the MetaQuest headset as well as the armband as part of the whole program. They get that along with a journal, and then they get enrolled in an online course where you're in a cohort with some other folks that are going through the same thing and same process. And then there's daily lessons and reflections. And so you'll reflect on something. It could be, a spiritual or kind of a parable style story, or it can be, a story about a historical figure. But what's actually happening in the story, we then narrate what's the neuroscience of what's actually happening within
Mm,
you when you're actually feeling that story and in
yeah.
that. And then there's a kind of an invitation. So you'll actually get the hardware, you'll get the access to the online course, and then do weekly hour coaching sessions with me throughout the whole process. So we try to keep it, as off the shelf as possible. I Because largely my goal is to make this affordable and accessible. That there just really isn't a lot of options for that, and so we're trying to use everything that already exists as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I would say I haven't heard of anything like this, so
Mhm.
it's awesome.
No,
Um,
yeah, it's been really cool to be a part of it and to be able to do this, because everything that has come out over the last number of years really focuses on one aspect. And I was having a conversation with a chiropractic neurologist not too long ago, and his biggest thing is that there's so many things like the red light helmets and some of the other heart rate variability watches that are all kind of useful, but they don't give your brain direct insight and feedback in a functional way to actually permanently create some shifts. And that's one of the things that we're really striving for, is to get to that place where this is something that is a solution, not just a everyday practice you have to continue to do all the time.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, okay, can we change gears a little bit
Yeah,
and
definitely.
talk health a little bit?
Mhm.
And what are some of the benefits that you're seeing or expecting from those that are kind of becoming masters of their inner universe through this
Yeah.
program?
Good question. Because individuals are coming from so many walks of life, it's been fascinating to watch and to see, what's the shared experience? Is there kind of a central benefit that everybody's getting? There's one individual who has been a practicing Buddhist teacher for about 40 years now, and she had a lot of trauma early on in life and really just couldn't connect with her body, and just felt constantly like she was just being inundated with so many things. And this is an incredible human being who's, running multiple companies, multiple charities, supporting so many people. And after, about, I guess it was probably about 2 weeks, she said, for the first time in my life, I feel safe in my body. And then a couple weeks later, she said, this is incredible. I used to be juggling 10 balls all at the same time. And now it's like all the balls are sitting on a table, and I can walk up, pick one up, do what I need to with it, set it down, and then pick up the next one. And she said, I've never felt this productive in my entire life, and I'm not exhausted. And so then for another guy who's in finance and does a lot of capital raises for large companies, that, I was always running financial scenarios in my mind. I was always just looking for the angle, and all the noise is gone now. I'm able to just be present, and I'm able to watch for when the opportunities are that are coming up that I want to choose in my life, rather than constantly having to test and react to everything that was coming at me. And so, it's really interesting. And then for a mom who was in it, she said, she was in the other room getting ready. Her kids started, one started crying and screaming. The other one was kind of looking a little guilty of something. And she came storming into the room. And usually she would have reprimanded, and they would have caused a rupture in the relationship. And she would have felt bad and had all kinds of parental guilt. But she was able to just slow down and actually connect with the kiddos, and hear what was going on, and sit on the floor and just co-regulate. And what would have been a disruptive experience in their life and in their relationship, all of a sudden became this really reparative relational experience where they could connect and show up together. And it was pretty phenomenal. And so it's really, our nervous system is at the core of all of what drives our psychology, the way we think, the way we process, even the way we think about ourselves, the internal stories we tell of what we're capable of or not capable of. So when that is regulated, our brain and our body stop competing for resources and work together to really be able to optimize our experience in life. So
Oh,
it's pretty varied.
yeah. So as far as benefits, it sounds like the one's relationship with themselves and then relationships with others are
Mhm.
some of the first areas that's like, whoa, I'm experiencing something different here.
Yeah.
And of course, it sounds like it's a really positive thing.
Mhm.
How about like long-term physical health? I mean, I would imagine, I mean, being able to track that is going to be difficult, but being able
Yeah.
to lower that accumulated stress load
Mhm.
for people, what are some of the ways that could benefit?
Yeah. So that accumulated stress point, that allostatic load that we normally get used to, our nervous system is constantly rising to meet whatever stressors are coming at us. And once we get to that level, we're like, got this. I could bring on more stress. And so we oftentimes just keep accumulating stress. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, in my opinion, because our entire system is interconnected. So if we're experiencing more stress, we're in more of a sympathetic nervous system state. Now we're sending out these stress peptides to our body that actually reverberate the cells in all of our muscles and actually change the shape of the receptors to receive stress chemicals and to block relational chemicals of oxytocin and serotonin and some of these other ones. They're all the same receptor sites. They just change shape. So now we're not actually able to drop into relaxation as easily. While that happens, now cytokines kick up. So we're in a lot more inflammation. We've got a lot of inflammation going on in our body. Our gut goes more acidic. So now our gut is not able to actually break down all of our food into micronutrients and turn it into the neurotransmitters that we need for our brain or for our body to actually feel resourced. So now we've got this feedback loop where our gut is telling our brain, you're under resourced. You don't have enough. You better watch out. There's danger. And now the brain's saying, great, I'll lock on and go into defensive mode and throw down some more stress chemicals. And now we're in this oxidative stress cycle where our cells start breaking down. Our fingernails get brittle. Our hair looks, a little bit more fine. Our, overall, we end up moving more and more towards illness. We move towards where our our immune system can't fight back. It doesn't have the resources to fight back. If we're in that sympathetic nervous system state, we can't go into rest, digest, and release the growth hormones to repair. So this has a huge impact on overall functional health throughout our entire life. And then the other piece of that, when we're in that state where we're just surviving, it reduces our functional intelligence by 20 to 40%. So our IQ is the same, but we can only use, 20 to 40% less of it while we're in that state. So this has a huge implication on overall health and well-being and ability to recover post-workout or just from daily, hits to the nervous system with stress.
Wow. Man, have you ever had anybody jump on and they're like, "Oh man, you're awesome at this. You're done."
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
It's funny. Yeah, there's been a number of folks that initially can do it really, really well. There've only been a handful of folks that are there and actually can continue to stay there. But we get this time period where folks that are super performative and they really show up well in life, they do
Score high.
awesome for the first 3 or 4 sessions. And then it's novelty's gone and they tank and they're so frustrated initially, which is fantastic because frustration and experiencing a little bit of that stress actually is what causes neuroplasticity to start. Getting enough norepinephrine to where it stresses you enough, but doesn't throw you over into complete frustration or emotional shutdown, starts neuroplasticity. And then once you go to sleep that night in your REM cycle, that's what actually crystallizes neuroplasticity, which is just the ability for our brain to really learn and create new pathways and that kind of thing. And so once that occurs and they hit that bottom and then that frustration happens and then they get an incremental learning moment, and then we see the tank and then we see them just completely go up from there. And it's really cool to watch. So yes, there are some folks that get in there and they're like, let me just try it. And it's like, well, shoot, that went really well. You didn't get the full experience, but the novelty piece does wear off and then the nervous system settles into actually doing the work.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's so cool. So
Yeah.
what is, kind of just wrapping up, thank you very much. That was
Absolutely.
awesome. I especially love your simple description of the allostatic stress, impacts on our body, on our cells, digestion. That was
Absolutely.
great,
Yeah.
man.
Thank you.
What's the best way for people to check out your work to get going with neural
Yeah.
progeny?
So neuroprogeny.com is a good one. We also, I believe we're going to have a promo code for you in show notes and, to be able to get a discount on that. And then, Yeah, I think that really looking at that neuro underscore Cameron on Instagram is
Okay.
another way to see some other stuff that's coming up. And uh, and then yeah, just kind of reach out from the website if you've got any questions, and happy to have a conversation or explore if it's a good fit.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Let's do the code. We'll put it in the outro and put it in the show notes. Little permanent
Perfect.
spot there. Cool. Cameron Allen, thank you so much. Awesome conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. So good to be here.
All right. What a great conversation. Wasn't that awesome? Now, I know you're curious. You want to go check out Cameron's work over at Neuro Progeny. The best way to go ahead and access his work is by going to beginwithin.fit/Cameron. Cameron, Cameron, beginwithin.fit/Cameron. That will get you over to his site, Neuro Progeny. And of course, that's going to give us an affiliate path in there. Thank you, Cameron, so much. But also, when you use the code PODBWH, begin within health, PODBWH at checkout, if you decide to get involved with Cameron and his team, you are going to get $500 off. So isn't that generous? Thank you, Cameron, so much for being so generous to us and to our listeners. $500 off. Begin within.fit/Cameron and then go to pod BWH. Use that code at checkout, pod BWH, for $500 off. Wow. What a cool gift. I'm so grateful to Cameron for being here on the show. I'm happy to be able to share this with you. Of course, please don't forget that your health is very personal, it is nuanced, it's something that's built over time. You've got to work hard to find what works for you and then stick with it. But I'm so glad to be able to support you. I know Cameron is as well. Thanks for being here. I'm going to talk with you again soon. And until then, please keep taking good care of yourself.